Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Bright Talk webinar. My name is Jari Carter, and I'm going to be your presenter for today. I just want to go through a couple of quick housekeeping items. I'm assuming you've all attended a Bright Talk webinar before, but just so you know, you are welcome to ask questions. I welcome those. I will be presenting for about 30 minutes today, and then we'll, after my presentation, we'll go through the questions from the audience, answer any questions that you may have. So you're all welcome to ask questions in the chat, and I'll pick those up at the end, and happy to answer any one of those. Just to introduce myself, my name is Jari Carter. I'm a co-founder and chief revenue officer at Oro Inc. Just to back up here, I've actually spent most of my career in sales and sales leadership roles. Probably my most relevant history is my last two companies. One was called where I was part of leading the Americas sales and channel organization. We grew that for a couple of years from about 6 to 35 folks, my sales and channel development. And then most recently, before starting Oro, I was with a company called Magento, which is a commerce software company. Very, very quickly, in 2010, grew from about 4 or 5 sales folks up to over 60 salespeople. So the topic of sales enablement is near and dear to my heart. It's something that we, Magento now, Oro, it's something that we've efficiently, because we have a lot of other things going on within our roles, and most recently we with one of the co-founders of Magento and Magento, a company called Oro. And Oro is a company that was really started as a CRM company, and the concept of Oro was the idea that CRM weren't keeping up, that companies are selling across multiple channels now. Customers get flexibility than they ever have, and the current CRM systems really aren't delivering that. So we started Oro with that in mind as a beginning point, and I'll talk a little bit about how we think about sales enablement and how we use our tool to enable the sales organizations. Now, the things that I'll talk about within Oro aren't actually unique to Oro. They can be done in other systems, but these are just things that we think about, use cases that we've seen, customers that we've come across that I'd really like to share with the audience here. So with that, I want to go into what I'm going to be talking about today. So the agenda for today's meeting is really first I want to define sales enablement. The sales enablement that I'm going to be talking about. Talk about why these particular areas in sales enablement are critical. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about the best practices for enablement within a CRM system and how you should be using technology, particularly but technology to enable your sales organization and make sales enablement. So we see that in our organization, seen it across the companies that I work at, is that you actually have to have, if you're going to effectively enable salespeople, that you have a language and a common tool that everybody uses. So first and foremost, let's talk about the purpose of today's call. So today I'm going to talk about best practices in training and onboarding. We're going to talk about so how to facilitate those across the team. And then we're also going to talk about sales communications. So this is most importantly and particularly internal sales communications. So how do you have internal sales communications across teams? Everybody lives in a resource-constrained model. So how do we work within that resource-constrained model to allocate resources the best possible way? And then lastly, we're going to talk about sales and marketing assets. So the sales and marketing assets we're going to talk about is how do you actually make sure that you get your team access to the marketing assets and sales assets that they need to be successful, to be trained, to talk effectively in front of their customer, and how do you put that in their hands so that they can put those things in their customers' hands. So moving forward, why is this critical? Well, you guys are all on the call today because you know that it's critical, but I just want to put an exclamation point on why this is so critical, why enablement is so critical. And I wanted to start from the concept of what your buyers are saying, or what buyers are saying generally in the market. So IDC is reporting that actually in surveys that they do, and if you don't know IDC, they're fantastic at market surveys and market sizing generally. We use them a lot in terms of both of these elements. But what they're saying is they're reporting that at least 57% of sales reps appear to be only somewhat prepared or not prepared at all for initial client meetings. And that buyers felt that sales reps were effective at solution selling only 16% of the time. This is an incredible indictment on the state of sales in general. And this also, when I look at these numbers, I also view massive opportunity because what they're saying is that your competitors, 60% of the time that they show up to a meeting, they're not going to be prepared. That 81% of the time that your competitor is in front of a customer, they were not effective at solution selling. And this is a massive opportunity for you to 100% of the time be prepared in front of your customer and to 100% of the time be effective at solution selling. And so there is a massive opportunity to improve. Now, second, what your sellers are saying. This is what your internal people are saying, or what internal sales reps are saying, sort of generally across the spectrum, that they spend somewhere between 10 and 35% of their time seeking content to share with their clients. So they are spending a bundle of time trying to find assets, trying to find the right content, getting trained themselves, kind of a DIY approach to giving customers the right content and getting knowledge for themselves, up to 30% of their time, which, we know that cost of sale and cost of sales is a huge expense for most companies. And so this just won't abide. This is, something that has to improve. Now, another report that we looked at, and this was the 2015 report on the state of sales enablement. And I'm happy to send anybody these reports or this information after the webinar today. If anybody wants these specific studies or reports, I am happy to share that. One is that the importance of sales enablement, again, this is from the view of a seller, they view sales enablement as an 8 out of 10 in terms of, importance for them. Yet they feel like their company is only 5 out of 10 effective. So most, and we're seeing this from the other data, is most companies actually are highly ineffective at doing sales enablement, at enabling their sales organization. And it is just something that as I have been at organizations, it's just something that typically continues to flow to the bottom of the list because of other critical priorities. And chances are that you can improve on this. Again, this was a report that asked about 400 B2B companies, B2B sales reps, how they felt about sales enablement and if their company was effective at this. If you want access to the report, you can email me. I'll give you my contact information at the end of the call here. Now, back to why this is critical. And this is probably, the most important thing that I see is that you have to create a better customer experience. And your salespeople, your customer service people, your account managers are your connection to the customer experience. So creating a better customer experience is something that if you look at what all the analysts are talking about is really the only true source of competitive advantage going forward. Actually, brand loyalty is diminishing as something that brings people back to work with your company. Less than 30% of customers actually report being brand loyal anymore. So brand loyalty, and that number has continued to go down. Pricing won't work. Having low pricing is now a commodity. Your customers expect low pricing. Amazon and others are actually dropping the bar in terms of pricing expectations, pricing transparency. So low pricing isn't something that is now, a competitive differentiation in most businesses. There is an expectation that you will have competitive pricing, and we're seeing this even in large B2B enterprise companies that they're actually competing now because of pricing transparency. They're competing with even mid-market and lower-end players. Now, in addition, your customers have more opportunity to share than ever before, which makes customer experience all the more critical. So every customer now with the democratization of social media now has access to 500, 1,000, 2,000 people that if they have a bad experience with your company, they actually can just send out a tweet or a Facebook post. Because of this, a bad experience with your company can go much more viral than it could have maybe 5-10 years ago. And so all of this sort of culminates in the idea that the companies that are really winning are companies that are creating a better customer experience. You look at a company like Nordstrom in the retail space, how they have weathered the financial storms and juxtapose that to companies in the retail space that are, going out of business, shutting down shop. If you look in the online space, companies like Warby Parker, companies like Bonobos, that are really just doing a great job at cultivating a better customer experience are the ones that are winning. And then even technology companies like Atlassian, companies like Zendesk that are really cultivating a better customer experience, a differentiated customer experience, are the ones that are winning in this sort of economy that we are finding ourselves in right now. Now, all of this is just to say that you have to create a better customer experience. It's actually, for companies that are, starting, for your competition that's coming up, this is the top priority for them. And so it has to be the top priority for you and for all of us as we actually, move forward and with this new competitive landscape that we all live in. So how do we do this? We all know that it's important. It's been defined. We know that creating a better customer experience is something that's critical. We know that your sales teams are craving to be enabled, that they're craving for training, for assets that they can share with their customers, for information. And so how do you effectively do this? Well, first and foremost, in enabling sales enablement, and this was my play on words, but in enabling sales enablement, you have to first look at sales process. And this is where I'm going to talk about a few use cases that either I've seen in my career or some things that we've seen across some other companies that we're working with. We work with, at Oro CRM, we have about 80,000 plus active installations of our software, and new active installs happening each day to the tune, that are in the 1,000 plus. And so we're seeing a lot of new implementations of CRM. And so we're seeing a lot of, we're able to aggregate best practices and things that customers are thinking about and talking about. And so if we look at, first things first in this, I want to talk about the sales process and share a couple of things that we're seeing. Now, I'll share this in the context of our CRM. Again, it's not unique to us, but just in the context of our CRM, to give you an example use case, again, a use case that we're seeing over and over again. First of all, we think about the sales process as starting at, let's say, a lead. Yours may be different, but most companies that we see have leads come in. And the great thing about a CRM system like ours is that you can configure it. So if you want to start with a lead, or if you want to start with a contact, or if you want to start with an online purchase, whatever you want to start with, you can start with that. But let's just take, for this use case example, somebody comes in as a lead. And a lead comes in, and what you really want to do is train your team on what to do when a lead comes in. So this is where training meets technology. A lead comes in the door. When is the appropriate time to actually promote this lead to an opportunity? For us, and for most companies that we come across, it's when you've identified the common term BANT. So BANT is when the customer has budget. The customer service or sales rep has identified the customer has a budget, that they have authority, that they have a need for the product, and that there is a timeline for the purchase. So a budget for the project, authority to purchase, a need, an actual need for the product, a real need for the product, and a timeline to purchase. And for us, within our system, no lead can be promoted until those items are identified. And we walk through this over and over again with our sales organization. We talk about it in forecasting meetings. We go through lead reviews. So this is just a common language, a common nomenclature within our organizations and within a lot of the organizations that we see that are doing sales enablement very well. Now, second to that, once a lead is promoted to an opportunity, then it goes through a set of steps. And we have enabled these steps within our CRM system because we want to make the CRM system a facilitator of how to actually take a customer through a sales process. So once it's an opportunity, it moves through different steps or different statuses. So, for example, the last couple of companies that I've worked at, this has been our sales process. We first start with identifying and aligning an opportunity. This is when BANT has been identified and decided. You go through the identification and alignment. So that's where you're really sort of understanding the opportunity at a high level. Then you move to the needs analysis stage. And that's where you're really sort of understanding the need. You're really getting deep into what the customer need is. You're understanding those top 3 or 4 reasons that they need your product. From there, we go into solution development. So we begin to develop the solution and come back with a proposal to the customer. Then we go through the negotiation phase where we're actually negotiating the opportunity. And then it either is closed won or closed lost. Now, at each of these steps, there are probabilities defined for each of these. So, for example, when we're just identifying and aligning an opportunity at that first stage, there's a 0% probability that the opportunity is going to close. Once we get to a needs analysis, we're at 20% probability that it will close. Once we're actually going through the effort of developing a solution, we believe with 50% certainty or 50% probability that this opportunity will close. Once we go to the negotiation phase, we're at 80% that there will be a closed opportunity because we've gone through all of this and we're not negotiating a contract unless we have a good degree of certainty that an opportunity will close. And then the opportunities either close won or close lost, either 100% or back to 0% with a closed lost. Now, one thing that is really important in this is we never skip steps, even if a customer wants us to skip steps. And sometimes a customer comes in and says, hey, just give me a quote. And we will always take them back to the top of the sales process because that is our best practice. That is the enablement that's happened among the team. It's technology, working together with sales leadership to coordinate and make sure that we are not skipping steps in the sales process. And then the other thing is that resources are actually identified and defined as they go through, as a customer, as a sales rep actually goes through the sales process. So for example, if we are in the identification and alignment phase, we actually won't assign, let's say, a sales engineer or our consulting organization to develop a solution because we're actually not there yet. If we haven't gone through the needs analysis phase or really identified and aligned ourselves to the opportunity, we won't go through the solution development, or we won't negotiate a contract until we actually have a clear understanding of why the customer needs the product. And so resources are actually allocated within the organization based on where a customer is at in the sales process. Again, we live and everyone lives in a highly resource constrained model. So when sales engineers or a consulting team is assigned to an opportunity, they're not assigned until somebody goes in and actually looks at this and says, okay, where are we at in the sales process? And again, this is just a best practice and something where, again, enablement meets process, meets resourcing. Too many people we see are actually trying to implement CRM without tying it to their sales process. And in my opinion, this is why so many CRM projects in the market generally are failing, because people know I want to implement a CRM system, but they're not actually tying it to the sales process that they have, and they're not enabling their teams to actually use the CRM system as a communication tool between organizations to allocate resources and to make sure that best practices are followed. So again, it goes back to best practices, sales process, and training of your sales organization. Now, part and parcel to that is the idea of forecasting. So again, the companies that we're seeing actually using the CRM system as a sales process tool and taking customers through that, let's say 0%, 20%, 50%, 80%, 100% sales process of customers going down the funnel in probabilities, are actually coming out with really beautiful forecasts that they can share with their leadership team, with their CEO, with their board, and they are starting to share these forecasts and communicating what they actually believe the state of the business will be in the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. And so this is a nice externality that is coming out of the sales process. And if you get the right CRM tool, forecasting should be easy, and forecasting should just come as part of what you're doing out of the box. And that certainly is the case for us. So we're seeing, if a company is really setting up and following a sales process, the ability to forecast is simple. Now, I want to go to a little bit more interesting use case than sales process and forecasting. I look at those two things as kind of table stakes. If you're not doing those things, you certainly have to start with those because those are the basics and really should be great starting points. So sales and marketing content. Let's go back to the idea, and this is a bit more sophisticated use case, something we don't see very often, but the companies that are doing it are actually having a lot of success. Companies that are effectively enabling their teams with this type of sales and marketing content are seeing about a 50% increase in quota attainment. And that's pretty impressive from doing just a handful of things that are really effective. Now, so what is this? So sales and marketing content is when a lead comes in. Let's just take this use case. A lead comes in, the person is identified as, let's say, a CTO. And that's whether they are self-identified or based on the content that they viewed on the website. Now that lead comes in, the sales rep is automatically given content relevant to that customer or that prospect or that lead in the information. So you can see here that we know that a CTO has come in, they have questions, and automatically there are a few things that the sales rep should be looking at. We have a CTO sales sheet, we have a CTO white paper, and we have a CTO internal data sheet that would be helpful. So a sales rep, when they're looking at this lead, they don't have to go hunting for all the information relevant to what a CTO might be interested in their product. They have the top 3 or 4 items that they should be sharing with or talking about, the talking points that they should have with a CTO. Now, we're seeing this based on a lot of different things. So it's not just leads coming in the door. Another great example of this type of content is even internal role-based content. So when we talk about role-based content, we think about the concept of you have content being delivered to people based on the internal role that they have. So for example, if I am a lead development rep, I would have content delivered to me around how to generate interest, how to generate product interest for a customer. If I'm an online sales rep, I now have access to content that would be more relevant to a technical buyer. A sales manager or vice president of sales may be delivered more information relevant to a chief executive officer or some kind of CXO that they're interacting with on a ongoing basis. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't see other content that you want to give them access to, but the primary information or the primary content that they would have access to would be content that would be valuable to their specific role. And you can within our system, I'll say that you could deliver content to people based on all kinds of information, based on campaigns that they're running, based on types of customers that they're targeting. The key is organizing content in a way that makes sense for your sales organization and in a way that allows them to digest information, the right content at the right time. And this has been one thing that when we have gotten right within our organization that our team has really appreciated. The sales organization appreciates the extra effort that the management team goes through to actually deliver the right content to the right team, because what it says is, I don't want you spending up to 35% of your time hunting for content or emailing the marketing organization asking for, do we have some white paper that's effective for a CTO that's actually automatically delivered within your CRM based on the lead that you've gotten. The content is delivered, and all of that is rule-based, pretty easy to set up and manage. And I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody that wants to talk about that in greater detail. Now, the last thing I want to talk about within this portion of enabling sales enablement is the customer experience. Now, again, going back to this, is the ultimately most important thing that you can do is create a better experience for your customers. You actually need to enable your team to know who your customers are. So whether this is new sales organization or a customer service or account management, this is the thing that will win and create a better customer experience for your team. And you want to give your team the tools to know their customer and then train them on what to look for. So for example, in this screenshot here, you see that we see lifetime sales value for a customer. We see previous purchases. We see maybe even for an e-commerce company what they've abandoned in their shopping cart. We can go further and see what you can see here, what website, where they're spending time on the website, and what that might say about their interests. And we're actually seeing customers that are taking all of this wealth of information and actually starting to categorize buyers. They're starting to tag customers based on types of customers they may be across a variety of different data sources. So website, previous purchases, where they're spending time on the website, what information they've requested, how they've requested information. Maybe it's come through phone or maybe it's come online. However that's happening, they're actually starting to turn those that information into customer personas and then train their sales organization on, now that you see this, now that you see these trends, here's the type of buyer you might be dealing with. And this is, again, critical to creating that customer experience that you want to. Now, lastly, I'll just say a word about Oro CRM. This, all the screenshots you've seen about the role-based content, about forecasting, about sales process, about serving up the right sales and marketing content is all available within Oro CRM. At the heart of our product, we really want companies to create a better customer experience. You know that's something that we talk about, is creating that better customer experience, creating a better sales experience for your team so that they can create a better customer experience. And if you feel like some of the things that you've seen here today, might be of interest to you, I'd be happy to have a conversation with any one of you that may have any questions. So here's my contact information. You can reach out to me on Twitter. You can reach out to me on email, jari@orocrm.com. It's pretty simple. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. So I'll be happy to take just a few minutes of audience questions. I was hoping to just answer a few questions before we dropped off. So I'll wait just a minute for any questions. And while I'm waiting, I'll answer just a few common questions that we've seen. So feel free to ask questions in the chat. But here are a couple of common ones that we come across. One is how much effort is it to create content based on roles? And that is actually something that just depends on the level of sophistication. So if you want to do it based on, website activity or what people are doing or leads that come in, that's one element. If you want to do it based on roles, having people having access to specific content based on their roles, you can do that as well. Normally, because of the flexibility of our product, we're not seeing that. I would say by and large, it's not a huge, effort. It's more, I would say, more of an effort on the sales and marketing side to actually make sure that you have the assets that you want to deliver to the sales organization, and make sure that you have a clear understanding of when this type of lead comes in, this is the type of content that we want to be delivering. So I would say this is probably an 80% business issue and a 20% technology issue. Another common question here is how are companies coordinating between marketing and sales for the best content? And I would say this is something that actually going through the process of saying, okay, what content do we deliver for what campaigns, or what content do we deliver to what roles, will actually really help you understand where the white space is within your marketing and sales content. Certainly when we've done this, and I can just speak from my own experience, when we've done this type of mapping, we've found that, okay, maybe we're really good on technology content, but we're really not great at speaking to marketers, and we need to do a better job of actually creating content for marketing organizations. Or maybe we're really good at top of the funnel, our top of the funnel sales messaging, but once we get down to the bottom of the funnel, when we're really trying to sort of drive into in-depth 2 to 3 key value propositions, we're not doing that effectively, and we need to create better content to do that. So I found that this exercise not only helps from a technology and, again, reduction of salespeople having to, run all over the organization trying to find content, but it actually helps sales and marketing leaders coordinate on, okay, where do we really need additional air cover and information? And then the last question here is, what are the best practices in forecasting and sales process training? So best practices in forecasting and sales process training, I would say, have been a couple of things. At every organization I've been at, we've invested in a quarterly sales meeting. Now, this is a great opportunity for particularly remote sales organizations to all get together in one room, hear what the company's doing from a product standpoint, hear what the company's doing from an overall sort of messaging and marketing standpoint, but also for the sales organization to actually enable each other. So you have different departments actually providing enablement, or you have a specific group that's assigned to do enablement training. And this is a great way for people to coalesce around best practices, to coalesce around, how do we best forecast, how do we best take people through the sales process. And so that quarterly sales meeting, is something that's been effective for me. I would say, other companies I've seen have done that remotely. Other companies I've seen do kind of a monthly training or a biweekly training where people come and one person takes kind of that sales enablement function of actually training somebody. I've also seen companies that don't have a formal sales enablement role actually set this up where teams actually train each other. And so, every team is assigned, let's say on a monthly basis, to come up with, best practices training. And those are ran by the sales leadership team before, or by the leadership team generally before they're actually rolled out to the team. But actually each individual organization or each group within the sales organization actually is responsible for that. So again, those are some of the things that I've seen work. I would say, again, probably the most effective thing I've seen work is actually mapping enablement to technology and mapping the sales process to technology. Technology or sales reps are so technology enabled now. And companies that don't have, CRM systems are really falling behind in terms of internal communication because they just don't have a handle on their sales process. They don't have a handle on forecasting. They're really falling behind in terms of not just sort of their internal processes, but also customer experience. Because if you really are having to go to 5 different places to sort of connect with your customer or understand who your customer is, sales reps aren't going to do that. And so those are the sales reps, those sales reps that are showing up, basically unprepared for their sales meetings. They're the ones that don't actually take customers through a sales process, that aren't doing solution selling, that are struggling in these areas. So with that, I'm just at my time here. I want to thank everybody for joining, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for spending 40 minutes with me here.